Hey, hello there, and welcome to New Day Live. I'm Pastor Michael Hailey. So glad you're joining me today. I'm doing a series called Radical, and we're in our third week of the series. The first week was Radical You, where we talked about the amazing way God has created us. The second message was Radical Love, and today I want to sort of continue that notion of radical love with this message, sort of a part two. And let me begin with a question this morning, and here it is. What is a four-letter word that means a strong emotional reaction to a difficult person? Okay, now think about a difficult person out there and a strong emotional reaction toward that one who's difficult. What would it be? Four-letter word. How many of you would say hate? That's a strong word, but it very well could apply. But also, couldn't love apply? Also a four-letter word? It's all a matter of perspective, really, isn't it? Because our answer to a question like that may very well reveal something about ourselves to ourselves, especially as it relates to Jesus' command to love God and love one another. Now, today I mentioned this is a continuation of the message Radical Love from last week, where we talked about Jesus' words found in Luke chapter 10, beginning in verse 25. I want to read those with you. Let me refresh your memory by reading them this morning as we start. The scripture goes like this. One day an expert on Moses' law came to test Jesus' orthodoxy by asking him this question. Teacher, what does a man need to do to live forever in heaven? Jesus replied, what does Moses' law say about it? Well, it says, he replied, that you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and you must love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. Right, Jesus told him, do this and you shall live. Now, last week I gave you an overview of what it means to love God and to love others. Today I want to share two secrets, really, that unlock that particular teaching. Two things that I believe are as miraculous and life-changing as anything you have ever learned. Are you up for something like that? All right, well, let's just start. Let me give you the first one, and it has to do with loving others. Loving others is not an option. Now, when this law expert asked Jesus about the greatest commandment, he was no doubt expecting one response from our Lord. Love God with all your heart, right? But instead, he received two responses, and that second one really threw him for a loop. Love your neighbor, everyone you meet, by the way, love your neighbor as yourself. Because Jesus knew that when we actively love another human created in God's image, we are actively loving God. You see, we have this notion in Christianity that to show our love for God or to prove our love for God, it takes like fasting and prayer and Bible reading and attending church and the like. But really that's not true. The primary way we show our love to God is by loving who He loves. If you want to walk with God, walk with others. If you want to know God's heart, get to know the heart of others. If you want more of God's company, guess what? Enjoy the company of others more. If you want to love God for real, quit thinking of it as a you to God thing as much as you think of it as a you to another human thing. Does that make sense? And I know it's not always easy to do that, which is why Jesus more than one time said, follow me. In other words, follow my example, follow my lead. Because Jesus loved the people that society hated. And He loved the people that the religious crowd condemned. And He didn't do that in hiding or behind closed doors. Not at all. He did it publicly, right in front of everyone. The religious, the world, and the culture of the day. Jesus was smack dab in the middle of everything the people were involved in. The good, the bad, and the ugly. For instance, you remember the woman who was set to be stoned for committing adultery. Jesus didn't turn His back on her, did He? He didn't say, shame on you. He refused to judge and condemn her, and he actually came to her defense in the midst of this convocation of Pharisees, or the Samaritan woman who was shunned such that no one would even talk to her. Jesus couldn't wait to go have a conversation with her. I mean, when Pharisees called Jesus a friend of sinners, it was not because of what he taught. It was because he lived what he taught. And how many of you know there's a big difference in that? So let me ask you this question. How are you doing at loving others? And especially, how are you doing loving those who are a little difficult to love? You know the ones I'm talking about, right? I heard this funny story years ago about a couple who was celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. And both of them were obviously older and both hard of hearing, especially the wife was hard of hearing. Well, it came a time in the celebration where the husband stood up and wanted to say something about his wife. He wanted to encourage and say something to her. So he said some things to the crowd and then something to her, and finally he ended it with this. He said, "And darling, I want you to know that after 60 years together, I have found you to be tried and true." And his wife responded, "What? What did you say?" And he responded, "Well, I've found you to be tried and true." And a second time she said, "What? What are you saying?" And he was a little exasperated, so he yelled it out at her. And he said, "After 60 years, I've found you to be tried and true." And she looked around for a moment and stood up and said, "Well, I'm tired of you too." Isn't that good? Some people just make us tired, don't they? So what do? Well, we love God by just hauling off and loving those kinds of people anyway. Some people will rub us the wrong way, won't they? So again, what do? We just love God by loving them anyway. How about those people who anger us, people who disappoint us, people who let us down and do stupid stuff that make you just want to pull your hair out? What do? You got it. We just love them with the love of God anyway. So the first thing is loving others is not an option. It doesn't matter how they act or react. It doesn't matter what their lifestyle is. It doesn't matter what they're caught up in at the time. They still deserve to be loved. You want to love God, love others. It's not an option. Second thing I want to say this morning is this. Loving yourself is a must. Listen, this is so vital and significant because we must start at the bottom to get to the top. And by that, I mean loving others and loving God is best initiated as we learn to love ourselves. So again, here's another question. Do you love yourself? And I'm not talking about some sort of narcissistic arrogance. I'm talking about really, genuinely loving yourself. Or do you feel unworthy of love? Many people do, you know. Do you constantly find yourself saying bad things about yourself? Do you condemn yourself when you say or do something wrong? Are there times when you just wish you were someone else? Now, if you answered no to those questions, well, God bless you. That means you're just in pretty good shape. And I'm envious, by the way. If you answered yes to any of those questions, that just means you still have some room to grow. If you answered yes to all those questions, you're hopeless. No, I'm just kidding. Just messing with you. Nobody's hopeless, right? By the way, I struggled with this idea of loving myself for many, many years. I told my story a few weeks ago, how my father had left us, and my grandfather, who was my support system, died. And my new dad had some anger issues, and then later I was sexually abused by some older boys. And consequently, as I grew older, every time I looked into a mirror for a long, long time, every time I would look into a mirror, I didn't like what I saw. Now, if you can relate to that, or if you have your own version of poor self-esteem and not liking yourself, Let me suggest a few things for you to remember. Could I do that? The first thing I would suggest to you is this. Remember to forgive yourself. This is very important. Everyone has some things they regret. Things they said or did that were foolish, that were hurtful, that were sinful, painful maybe. Yes? So here's what we do. We just own it. Yep, that happened. I regret it. I'm sorry. I mean, what's done is done. All I can do now is just learn from that and realize that my future doesn't have to be like that part of my past. And then you just move on. And you can do that because the truth is that your failures don't define you. You may think they do, but they never have. And watch this. Don't compare yourself to other people, because the outcome of doing that will never be favorable and it will never, ever be edifying. I'll give you an example. I want you to think of the most godly and compassionate and nearly perfect person that you know. I'm talking about that one you admire that just has it all together. Got a picture? Here's the deal with that person. That one you think has it all together, they don't. I'm being serious. They don't. But what happens too many times is we look at a person like that and think, wow, they are just so good, which then results in us saying what? I am so bad. Bob George calls it the phantom Christian, that imaginary person that we continually compare ourselves to, that super person who gets up like at 4 a.m. to pray and study Scripture for 3 hours, and then they go to work, and he or she is at the top of their field, always sharing their Christian testimony with great boldness. They're a leader in their church. They teach a Sunday school class. They give generously. At home, he or she is that sterling example of a godly man or woman. Their spouse is a perfect partner. Their children are moral, well-behaved, right? The problem is, and trust me on this, I've pastored thousands of people over the years. The problem is there are none that can live up to that standard. Not that I've met. So cut yourself some slack. God has forgiven you. God accepts you. So listen, follow His lead. Accept yourself by remembering to forgive yourself. The second thing I would remind you about is this. Remember to be grateful. To be grateful is to acknowledge that God has blessed me. That what I have and what I experience and what I achieve is because of God's gracious favor, right? And gratitude, by the way, is more than a simple tip of the hat, thank you. Genuine biblical gratefulness is about delighting in those blessings. Like this. When you give someone a gift, they might respond, oh, I don't deserve this. Oh, you shouldn't have. Wow, thanks so much. And that's okay for a reaction, for sure. But have you ever given a gift and the recipient just beams, and they may even shed a tear or give you a big bear? That's called delighting in the blessing. So practice gratefulness, blessing and favor over you, if in fact you truly are grateful. The third thing I would remind you about is this. Remember that God loves you. And He loves you right now, this minute, just as you are. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about positive affirmations. Especially Scripture affirmations, those positive things that we speak to ourselves, and how they help train our subconscious mind, or as the Bible calls it, how they renew our mind. But sometimes it's hard for people to tell themselves things like, I'm loved by God. I am God's favored one. I am His beloved. Sometimes it's hard for us to say those things to ourselves. Especially those of us who have trouble loving ourselves. But isn't it ironic how those same folks who can't say those kind of positive things to themselves can readily accept the negative words and thoughts? You're so stupid. You're so ugly. What a loser. God could never love someone like me. Isn't it amazing that we can do that? By the way, have you ever heard the stories of those people who tried to commit suicide by jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge? There have been several books written about these people and interviewed those people. Prior to jumping, in the one book that I read, prior to jumping, many of these people were depressed and feeling hopeless, and they were looking for a way to escape the pain and hurts of life. That makes sense. But in interviews with a few of the people who survived after jumping, they admitted that they regretted their decision to jump. Get this. They regretted that decision to jump in midair. Hello. Right? Ken Baldwin is an example. He said, I instantly realized that everything in my life that I'd thought was unfixable was totally fixable except for having jumped. Now that's what he's thinking as he jumped off this bridge. A man named Kevin Hines said, as he was in flight, he said this to himself, what the hell did I just do? I don't want to die. And he's on his way down. Could you imagine? You see, they didn't want to end their lives. They only wanted to end their pain. And according to their friends and family, some of them just wanted to be, what do you think? They just wanted to be loved. Isn't that something? It's a tremendous need that all of us must have satisfied. Paul Young wrote a tremendous book called The Shack. Somewhat controversial in some Christian circles. You're probably familiar with it, and maybe you've read it. I hope you have. In the book, the character of God the Father is called Papa. And Papa's favorite thing to say to his children is this: Papa is especially fond of you. Now, Young said he used that phrase because more than a simple I love you, I am especially fond of you pierces the disquiet of our souls by saying, I know you and I like what I see. There is so much within you worth loving. Isn't that so good? I know you, I like what I see. There's so much within you that's worth loving. Well, shortly after reading this book, I had lunch with a young man who was reeling from a divorce which was mostly his fault, by the way, and he knew that. In the course of our conversation, he told me a deeply sad and touching story of growing up with an abusive father and a mother who was addicted to drugs, who eventually committed suicide. When he finished that very emotional story, I asked him how he felt. I said, when you tell me your story, like you just did, how does that make you feel as you're telling me the story? He responded that he felt all alone and completely, now watch this, he felt all alone and completely unloved. He said that the only person who ever truly loved him in his life and cared for him was his grandfather, get this, who he called Papa. Now, wow, that was an open door he gave me right there, right? Just after I've read this book. So I began to tell him about the shack and how God was called Papa. And then I explained that phrase to him, Papa is especially fond of you. And I explained what it means. Well, when I finished, I looked at him and I said, listen, I called him by name. I said, listen, God knows every single thing about you. He knows the bad, yes, but He also knows the good. He knows your kind heart. He knows your desire to be a good man and a good dad. And if God were sitting in this booth with us right now, do you know what He would say to you? He would say to you, there is so much within you that is worth loving. I like what I see in you. And He would say, Papa is especially fond of you. Well, it was pretty emotional for the next few minutes in that restaurant, as you can imagine. I mean, the waterworks were turned on. We even had a manager come by to see if there was anything he could do to help, and I was crying just as hard as this guy was. But you know what? That was a number of years ago. And every so often, I get an email from this man updating me about how his life is going. And by the way, it's going splendidly. And he always signs his emails this way. And don't forget, Pastor, Papa is especially proud of you, too. Isn't that just the best? Listen, I so hope you will remember that God, Papa, is especially fond of you today. He truly, truly is. And those around you, those you do life with, even the cantankerous ones, God loves them and He's fond of them as well. But He just may be waiting and needing you to help them understand His love for them. So hey, why don't we just get out there this week and take God at His word by letting Him love others through us? How about it? Will you join me? Okay, I'm way over on my time limit today. Hopefully, we'll get together here next week as we continue this series, Radical. If there's anything I can do for you or pray about for you, please let me know. Email me on our website, newdaychurchbrandon.org, or PM me on social media. Will you do that? And also, every week I send out an email or two, and at least one of those is something about something encouraging. Maybe a story, maybe an illustration, maybe something from a message that I've preached, just a way to encourage the people that are on my email list. If you would like to be on that list, by the way, you can opt off of it anytime you want. But if you'd like to be on it, again, send me a message. Give me your email address. I won't abuse it in any way. And you can receive those emails from me every week, okay? That's all we have for today. I want you to take care. Get out there and love some people like God loves you. Will you do it? All right. Bye-bye. See you next week. God bless.